So I saw the 3-year delayed Mutants, and what was anyone really expecting here? Do I get hipster cred for thinking this looked terrible even before the delays? Even back in 2017 when this movie officially finished production and the teaser was officially released, I was baffled as to why Josh Boone was attached to this. For those of you unaware, Josh Boone is the director of the 2014 adaptation of The Fault in Our Stars. He also made some other romance movie I didn't see, but that's besides the point. My own opinions on The Fault in Our Stars aside, which Fox executive watched this movie and figured, you know what this director needs to make? A movie with more scale, horror aspects, and the X-Men. Maybe they based it off of this scene at the Anne Frank house. This is one of the worst scenes in any movie ever. What the hell's happening? Why does literally everyone start clapping? This is the Anne Frank house. This is so weird and uncomfortable and disrespectful. Anyways, even if I didn't know who was directing this movie, the first teaser trailer did not give me a good impression, and then it went and got delayed multiple times. Now, with the delay from April 2020 to August 2020, it was clearly because of COVID-19, but with every other delay, there was no real reason for it. At first, it was theorized that there were reshoots on this movie, but both Josh Boone and Maisie Williams have confirmed that no reshoots happened. This is the exact same movie it was in 2017. It has not been touched at all. And you can really tell that they haven't touched it at all because the co-creator of the New Mutants name is still misspelled in the credits. Despite him literally asking them multiple times to change it, it is still misspelled. I have my own guesses for why this was delayed, but we'll get to that later. First off, this movie's fucking terrible. Despite the very talented cast, there is not a single competent performance to be found in this movie. Anya Taylor-Joy in this role is not a bad idea, but she really needed a better script and direction because her performance here is fucking awful. Maisie Williams and Alice Braga are talented actresses. What the hell happened here? This is the first thing I've ever seen Blue Hunting, and she seems like an actress who does have potential, but oh my god, is her performance one of the worst I've seen all year. She overemphasizes every single line, and oh my god, does she overact every single emotion. Still, her performance was not the worst in the movie because oh my god, Charlie Heaton, what are you doing? If it weren't for the Artemis Fowl movie, this would be the worst performance of 2020 so far. And the thing is, I don't even like Charlie Heaton in the other films I've seen him in, but I can't even blame his performance on him here because it is very clear that this is a directing problem. All of the actors are made to put on these very fake bad accents and it's really laughable. For the most part, they're all inconsistent and every single one of them is unconvincing. Charlie Heaton's American accent was so overdone and unnecessarily amped up that it was a major source of humor for the film, and quite honestly, I'm still not definite on what accent Maisie Williams was going for. So far, I have narrowed it down to Scottish or Irish, but there are a lot of possibilities as to what it could be. To be fair though, all of these actors could be giving top-notch performances and they still would not be able to sell this dialogue. There is not a single line of dialogue in this movie that feels natural. There's a lot of scenes where characters are talking to each other, but it just feels like the film is talking at you. And there's also a lot of scenes where the dialogue is just embarrassing.
Take Danny to a safe place, and I'll take care of this bear.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to play with him.
Are you crazy? That thing will kill you!
He's right, it's magic.
So am I.
The script on the whole is just plain bad. Every character is basically just a walking cliche with no real personality. Every setup is painfully obvious, you can see every single twist coming from a fucking mile away. Imagine based off the concept for this movie, the most basic storyline and structure they could have gone with, and that's the one they chose. All of the conflicts in this movie are completely uninvesting and they rely way too heavily on convenience. This is the kind of script that I would normally say doesn't even seem like a first draft, but unfortunately this is confirmed to be the best version we could have ever had. Apparently, in early scripting stages for this movie, Storm was supposed to be in it as a torturous prison guard. I guess they went against that in order to be very poorly tied into Logan instead. In order to establish one of the movie's twists, they literally just recycled footage from Logan and put a shitty filter over it to make it seem like a distant memory. It honestly just felt like they had no idea how to show the twist off of their own merit. None of the horror is ever scary. None of the jump scares are remotely effective. None of the monsters are scary. Nothing works whatsoever. It's really fucking embarrassing. embarrassing. There's never any tension or atmosphere, and every single time you think you know what's going to happen with a scare, the exact thing you're thinking happens. The horror also relies way too heavily on the visual effects, which are fucking awful. These would have looked bad in 2017 and 2018 regardless, but the fact that it was delayed till 2020 and still released in this state is just embarrassing. You had 3 years to do something, and you left it looking like this. All of the creatures in the movie look completely unconvincing, especially the Smile Man. Every single effect looks fake and bad, and it's really distracting the entire time. Every shot with CGI eyes was fucking laughable. There's a shot where it's just an actor in front of a green screen with their hands supposedly brushing into something, but it looks like they forgot to finish rendering the shot. There were plenty of scenes where they tried to use bad lighting to improve the quality of the effects, but it never worked. The shit look of the movie extends to the cinematography too. There are literally only 3 well-framed shots in the entire fucking movie. The opening scene features some of the worst shaky cam I've seen in any film with an actual budget behind it. The scene has bad shaky cam from the get-go, but after a while it just begins to look like they added a shaking effect in the editing room. It looked like shit. Most of the framing choices in this movie are really ugly. There's this really awful artificial look to some of the shots in the movie, and it's very distracting. It honestly feels like they set out to make the worst looking movie they could, and those few good shots in the film were just incidental. The music was poorly composed, the editing was a fucking disaster, the film's really tonally messy, there's no consistency, all of the sets look like shit, the ending is horrifically anticlimactic and honestly fucking laughable. The action scenes look fucking horrible. Outside of those few accidental good shots, there really just isn't anything good about this movie at all. Now, some of you may be aware of the controversial casting choice in this movie. Yeah, there's a reason I didn't mention Henry Zaga earlier, although don't worry, he is awful in the film as well, you did not miss much. But anyways, Josh came under fire because the character that Henry plays is notably dark-skinned in the comics. There were some other ethnicity changes and people were not happy about it, and so he tried to explain his reasons for it, but in that reasoning, he fucked up badly. Honestly though, watching this movie, it was pretty clear regardless, no matter the ethnicity of the character, that Josh Boone really does not care about this kind of stuff. The main character in this movie is Indian, and she faces some flack for it from one of the other characters, and Josh Boone really tried to make her ethnicity a bigger part of the story here. The plot of this movie is very heavily based around the Native American proverb about the 2 wolves, we've all heard it, and despite the fact that it's a very well-known proverb and it's hard to fuck up, he still manages.
There's an old Native American proverb that says, "Inside every person, there are 2 bears."
I guess since one of the characters is basically a werewolf, they decided that they couldn't have any other wolf-related things in the movie. But the main character ends up in a relationship with this werewolf. Why didn't you do something with that? Why did you just change the proverb? And now that we're on the topic of their relationship, this is one of the most troublingly written relationships I've seen in a very long time, and honestly I think this might be the reason it was delayed. You see, The New Mutants was completed the same year that 13 Reasons Why was released and faced major backlash for romanticizing mental illness and especially romanticizing suicide. In this movie, Danny and Rain, the characters who wind up in a relationship, meet because Danny's trying to kill herself. Rain pulls her in and they fall over on the way, and then they just happen to land both on their sides facing each other in a way that would make it look like they were about to kiss. It's treated like a teehee. Isn't that adorable moment? And it's kind of annoying. And then they randomly reference it throughout the movie in an attempt to be quirky and cute. One of them repeats the line that the other used to talk them out of jumping, and then they kiss. It's really gross and uncomfortable, and all of a sudden the New Mutants getting released in the year that 13 Reasons Why ended officially makes a lot more sense. This is just a theory on my part. I think it's very, very likely that it's actually something else, but regardless, the writing in this movie surrounding this topic was just kinda gross. So yeah, Josh Boone, no. Anyways, overall this movie was genuinely just an embarrassment. I was able to enjoy it as an unintentional comedy, but this is definitely one of the worst films of the year. And whilst it doesn't join the 0 out of 10 club, it is the worst movie of the year so far to not be incompetent. Yes, I'm calling it worse than Dolittle. If you can enjoy bad movies like I can, then give this one a watch, otherwise I wouldn't recommend it. Oh, also, I'm not sure whether or not this is the worst X-Men movie. It's definitely worse than Dark Phoenix. I'm not sure if it's worse than X-Men Origins Wolverine. It might be, though. And I'm giving The New Mutants a 1 out of 10. That's the end of this video. Like, share, subscribe. I'm bad at outros, and I'll see you in whatever I do next.